Alright, so this is my Book Thief final project for world literature. Let's get right into it. The book that I chose was The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, who had an ethnicity that was German-Austrian, therefore showing how he could write such a classic book. Just a little summary of the book. It revolves around Liesel Memminger, a girl who loses her brother, is abandoned by her mother, and who goes to live with her new parents, the Hubermans, on Himmel Street in Germany during World War II. While she's there, she makes a lot of new friends, and she discovers herself and the power in place of words in not only her life, but others. She witnesses firsthand the atrocities of the war, and her father, Hans, teaches her how to read and have integrity during a time in which it's so hard to lose. Now, I selected The Book Thief by Markus Zusak because I've heard from so many different people that the story and messages are extremely well done and well thought out, and that I can learn a lot from reading it. I knew going into it that the culture would be based around Nazi Germany because I've seen the movie, and like I said, my friends talk about it a lot. Therefore, I was already expecting the atmosphere to be rigid and tense, just like Nazi Germany, what you would assume about that culture. So yeah, I was really hoping for it to be a great setting that would lead to a great story, and I was very amused by it. It was a very good book. I felt that my opinion on the culture was reasonable because, like I said, many people know about Nazi Germany, and I've studied it before, not only in my world history classes, but I've read other books like Anne Frank's diary and stuff like that, so I knew quite a bit about how life was like under Hitler's reign, not only for the Jews, but for German citizens as well, and for both it could be quite alike in the fact that it was very rough. Now, the theme statement: adversity brings out the best in us and paves the path for coming of age, especially during the adolescent years. Now, we will elaborate on this theme quite a bit during this presentation. So, what does the title have to do with the theme? So, Liesel, through stealing books, she gets her infamous title, The Book Thief, hence the title of the book. That's assigned by our narrator in the book, which is Death. With each successive book that Liesel steals, a new progression in her maturity and understanding of words and herself is made. For instance, when she steals her first book, The Grave Digger's Handbook, she's still very young, unable to read, and quite immature. She cries herself to sleep most nights and will wake up in a fit of anxiety and just emotion, and it's just bad. However, by the time she acquires her next books, Faust of Dog and The Lighthouse, she has become a much better reader, and her relationship with Hans Huberman, her papa, becomes much stronger, and you can see her maturity developing. So yeah, that's just an example. So how does character development, I'm going to talk mostly about Liesel's character development relating to the theme of coming of age, and they're both pretty much the same thing. The theme has almost everything to do with character development. We see Liesel start out as this dejected little girl whose brother dies and who's abandoned by her mother to go live with some new foster parents on Himmel Street. She can neither read nor write, and she has nightmares, like I was saying earlier, every night, from which she wakes up screaming and crying. She then develops later, and she progresses and matures into a woman who not only can read, but understands and analyzes her literature. She breaks it down into components and realizes the true, quote-unquote, power of words. This undying love for reading further progresses into her writing, which, at the end of the book, saves her life. So, it's pretty easy to see how directly related Liesel's development is to her coming of age. Now, some conflicts that present themselves within the book. We have a man versus himself, where Liesel tries to make up her mind on her feelings towards the Fuhrer, Hitler. She's told that she must love him with all her heart, but there are a lot of qualms that she has about loving such a hateful and spiteful man. Her resentful relationship with Hitler deepens as she matures and learns more about his atrocious ideals and misuse of his communication skills. Max is a huge help with this understanding once he comes into the picture later in the book. Now then, there's Man vs. Society, and this is a pretty obvious one. You could apply the Man vs. Society to a lot of different scenarios in this book, but one of them that I'm going to explain is how Hans is one of he calls himself the 10% who do not loyally follow in the footsteps of the Third Reich. Although this causes a lot of problems for him concerning his popularity, job, and status, it teaches Liesl a lesson about maintaining integrity and standing for what you believe in and not what others believe in. So if not for Hans's strong character, Liesl would not have hardened her standpoint on governmental issues in Germany during this time, and maybe would second-guess the harboring of Max in her basement, completely changing the entire story and theme. And then there's, of course, Man vs. Man. This one isn't as important, but Liesl, she is pretty much going against the rest of her school. Right when she gets onto Himmel Street and she starts going to school, she beats up someone that's poking fun at her inability to read because she messed up in class, or she wasn't able to participate in class. And although this initially probably seems pretty immature and not coming of age for her, I'd care to disagree, because it can also be seen inversely as Liesl sticking up for herself instead of letting the words of others get to her. So, thus this conflict is a turning point in Liesl's personality and character as a whole. Now, how does the setting develop the theme? So, the setting of the Book Thief is a vital role in Liesl's coming of age. The entire reason that Liesl faces adversity and anxiety over sheltering Max in the first place, and over many of the things, is solely because of the rigid socio-economic structure that was established under Hitler's reign during World War II. If not for this specific setting, Liesl may have never met Max, and therefore would not have ever learned what words mean to her and how effectively she could use them. Her entire life path thus would have been changed due to a completely different setting. So, just a little bit of conclusion, the relevance of the theme to my own life. Coming of age, not only for me, but for everybody, is extremely prevalent, especially during adolescence and the growing years of high school. Even just this past senior year, many adversities have come my way, often by my own undoing. I was supposed to go to the University of Michigan after being accepted and submitting my enrollment fees and everything, and telling all my family that I was going to go there and getting really excited, but I was recently told that due to some prior circumstances and events that personally happened to me, I'm no longer allowed to attend this university that I so desperately wanted to go to since all the way back in 5th grade when they came to my school and demonstrated their solar card to us. However, despite all of this and the bad stuff that has come from that, it's my strong belief that those adversities are the very things that make us better at being us. After all, we do learn from our mistakes, and it makes us better people. I figured out myself through my poor decisions and consequences of these decisions, and I know that everyone eventually goes through similar transformations in their mindset, whether it be fictional characters like Liesl, or people that I know, or even myself. Either way, I hope that I may assist in others' revelations through less severe mistakes than my own, because that's what life is all about. It's about learning from the mistakes of others and taking that information in and making something better out of it. Now, my preconceived notions, which I talked about earlier, overall, my conception of the culture in this novel, it didn't really change that much after I read it. I've studied Nazi Germany a lot, like I said, so the atmosphere and rigidity did not really surprise me as I was reading it. However, that said, it was definitely interesting to get a different insider's perspective on a family that didn't willingly submit to Hitler's reign and lived in constant terror of their alleged protectors during this time. No matter how much wartime literature I read, and I'm sure many other people who read a lot of wartime literature can agree with this, it still shocks me that 90% of civilians followed such awful, awful nationalistic ideals. Such dreadful times are really hard to picture and imagine because we weren't there. But this book did a really great job of painting the background and bringing noteworthy individuals into the foreground. And I really enjoyed it, personally. All right, and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.